Hey, everybody, welcome back to KCBC. You know, we've got a new format for 2026, and it's not that we're less professional, we're just a little bit more organic this time around. So, if you've caught up on the first couple episodes, you know that, I'm not really editing anymore. And again, that's not because I don't care, it's just because of some reflections I had back in 2025 with some of the episodes we did. And I am honored to introduce my friend Casey McBroom today. Casey is a grief and trauma specialist with Brave and Company. And Casey, it is so good to have you on the show. Thank you for
So
joining
good to
us.
be here. Thank you.
Yeah. So, yeah, I know you've been on other shows, but maybe you could just kind of start with the foundation of who you are, and then we can kind of get into some of the aspects you wanted to dive into today.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I'm still newer to this stuff. I'm such a one-on-one sit with a person type of thing. So I love this that I can sit on my couch and just hang out and, have conversations and talk about
Same.
life and healing and growth and business. And so, yeah, I'm a grief and trauma specialist. It's almost been 10 years now. 10 years ago, I had 8 major losses in 6 months. And with that, I just found myself spiraling. And I had done therapy before. I had done lots of different healing things, but it kind of just felt like it scraped it off the top. I found this program and it completely changed my life. And I realized it wasn't just like part of the reason the 6 months was like so painful, all of these losses were so painful, is because I had this backpack that was completely full of emotional rocks and it already was so heavy when all of these losses happened. And so I realized the things I went through were so painful, but I had lifetimes worth of pain and I didn't know what to do with it. And so I would just pull a couple rocks out and feel a little bit better. But this program changed my life because how do we pull all of the rocks out and live freely? And so,
And that's the recovery method, right? When you speak of the
yes,
program.
yes, it's called the grief recovery method. It's been around for over 50 years and it is evidence based. And so, like, the word recovery means to feel better. And so that's exactly what it did is it helps me feel so much better to live freely, to be able to just enjoy my life. I actually meant to grab the book, but in the book, it's a little purple book. They have many different books, but that's my favorite, the main one. It's written at a fifth grade level because when you're grieving, you don't need to, get into all the science of everything. You just need someone to be a heart with ears and listen. But I opened the first page and it says something like, nobody wakes up one day and says, grief, oh, I'll make this my life work. And I just felt like a punch from the universe, from God, just saying, you're going to do this with your life. And I was like, I've not even healed from my stuff. Like, I don't even know if I want to live. Like, I'm so not okay. Like, what do you mean this is what I'm going to do with my life? And so it just set me down this journey of starting to share. Um, and the story has to do with, kind of some of the business stuff too. But I started working for a therapist part time as a nanny, and her and I just sat and we would just talk about life and stuff. And she would just ask me questions and ask her my advice. And she's like, why do you know so much about this? And I started to share, just some of my story. And then eventually started sharing about this program that I wanted to teach, that I wanted to be a grief specialist, but I didn't know how. I didn't have the office. I didn't have, you know, like the time, the money. Like, I made all these excuses. And she was like, no, you like come work for me. Like, I have a part-time office. You can come do it. Like, I'm not going to charge you. So having one person who totally believed in me was really what pushed me forward. I had tried a couple different times and every time, made excuses or didn't know how. She just like, she's, a therapist, very much just threw me into it and was like, you're doing this. Like, you have passion, which, like, being able to just hold space for people is so much of what this job is. Like, I have all of the training in the background, but like being able to just hold space for people is so important and such an underrated skill. And so she very much just believed in me, and that was really cool. So
I
that's kind of
love
just what
that.
got me started.
Uh, you know, I feel like when I hear you tell your story, I get something new every time I hear you speak about it. And now that I'm sitting here, I'm literally sitting in, our office in our house, right? Stephanie and I's house. And we used to have a bookshelf over there. and now it's out in the other room, and we have that little purple book, The Grief Recovery
Mm,
Method, right? And there's a couple others that, helped us get through our, miscarriages and stuff, and it's really funny to say helped me get through it because
yeah.
grief is so messy, and I remember there were resources that I couldn't even pick up for, like, months. I had to be ready, and then when I was ready to read something or whatever, and that book was a gift from a friend at work who had been through, multiple miscarriages herself, and I really what I really love about it, I'm struggling to remember parts from the book right now, but what I remember loving about it was that it gave me a framework because I needed a foundation to get through the mess and understanding. I now obviously this is your domain. That's why you're on the show, right? You can tell us about the stages of grief and stuff, but how I could be hung up in one stage of grief forever and how much that held me back. So I just another thing that I caught you say, and you may have said this to me or Stephanie before. I think we saw you at Jeremiah's birthday party, right? I don't know if it came up, but this idea of holding space for people. What do you mean by that? That is so, so powerful. Can you describe that? And you're right. It's not a skill that too many folks have, or however you said it, it's not as prevalent, but what does that mean to hold space? How do you hold space for people?
Yeah. So one, I don't think I realized that somebody had given you the book or that you had it, so that's great that someone said, "Hey, you're going through this loss. Obviously, I can't fix it, but here is something that, when you're ready, you're able to pick up and kind of look at and have as a resource." Holding space, I kinda already talked about, like, the heart where we live in a culture where we think with our head and not with our heart. We are one of the few countries that thinks with our head first. Most people, they feel with their bodies and their hearts and their emotions, and not to let your emotions totally drive you, but we respond with head knowledge instead of heart knowledge. But grief, it's not a head wound, it's a heart wound. So holding space for somebody, we want to fix it. There's like we want, oh, somebody's uncomfortable. Okay, they're hurting, they're not okay. How do I fix it? How do I help them? Okay, you just got your arm ripped off. Here's a band-aid. Does this help? Like, are you feeling better now? And it's so well meaning, but we are so not taught anything about grief. But it is the most universal experience. 100% of us are grievers, whether it's death, whether it's divorce, whether it's loss of health or change in money or getting married, even beautiful things like moving, those are considered loss. 100% of us are going through loss and we don't know how to deal with it. So we all just think with our head, okay, well, I'll use moving for an example of, okay, I'm moving. It's a safer neighborhood. I'm more excited about the district my kids are going to be in. It's a bigger house. I really like my neighbors, but we're so stuck on the positive, and then we're trying to figure out why, you know, we're not feeling 100% great, or it's really hard, and we're like, everything's good, I don't understand. But if you listen to your heart, it's, well, my kids were born there, and I did love some of my neighbors, and that grocery store down the street, that was my favorite. It sounds silly, but like, we don't think with our heart. We don't give our time, like our heart, that space to not be okay. And so holding space just means to, like, we have this phrase, just a heart with ears, where it's okay, asking questions. That's one of the biggest tips that I give for grief, is not to try and fix it or to, give advice, but it's okay, well, you had a miscarriage. How was that for you? Okay, what was their name? What were you going Did you have a name picked out? How are you going to care for yourself in this? How can I support you? And even, just showing up with support, saying, "Hey, I'm going to come over, sometime this week to hear you just talk. When can I come over? I'm going to bring groceries. I'm going to bring coffee." It's just creating space for someone else to share and to be open and to not try to be fixed or changed or healed, just to let them process. There's
It
some,
seems very intentional, like you're intentionally
yes,
not doing what everybody's reaction is to, but to actually create space, I guess. Yeah.
yes.
Sorry, I
And
didn't mean to interrupt you. I just
no, you're
wanted to
great.
comment. Very intentional.
Yes. It's, I'm going to come sit in the mud with you. I'm not going to try and drag you up the mountain. We'll get to the mountain when we're ready. but you're sitting in the mud and me trying to drag you up when both your legs are broken, like, I'm just gonna sit here with you, and we're just gonna be here, and it's okay that you're here, and I'm not gonna expect you to be better soon. We have these timelines of grief in our head of, "Okay, I have to be better at a year, or I have to be better once this happens," and it's like, that's not
I
realistic, and
should have moved on by now
yeah,
is another one that I've felt.
yeah, yep, and it's even if we feel like we are not ready to move on, culture, society, our friends say, "Oh, you're still not over that?" Like, because they have moved on, they expect you to, or because they've shoved it down and not dealt with it, they expect you to shove it down and not deal with it too, so that everyone can be comfortable. But it's uncomfortable. And with that, like, one of my favorite tips also is, like, if someone is sharing, like, people are afraid to bring up the person who died. Like, might be afraid to bring up your miscarriage because, "Oh, I don't want you to think about it." You're probably already thinking about it anyways. To be remembered, to be heard and seen, it's so valuable. To reach back out months later, not just a couple weeks, like, after the loss, usually people are there for a couple weeks, maybe a month or 2, and then years later, it's, "You still think about that?" Well, yeah, now I have other children, and I wonder how they would get along with my children, and I wonder, you know, what they would look like now that I've seen a couple of my kids and, my face on them. Would they look like me or would they look like their mom? So we don't hold enough space for that, and we're so quick to forget people's losses because we don't wanna think about it. So holding space for ourself too, being able to hold space for myself and be able to look at my own pain created in me a desire to hold space for other people. It's if people can't like, people can only meet you as far as they've met themselves. And so taking time to care for yourself so that you can care for other people as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I heard you mention the airplane analogy of make sure you're on another show. I think it was the Recovery Method podcast. You had said, you have to make sure you're breathing first if you intend to help someone else breathe, right?
Mhm.
And, I personally too, I mean, this has been well documented on other podcasts I've gone on recently in the last year about how as a man I've shoved stuff down to care for my wife, to make sure she has space, sacrificing myself on that grenade. But then it's a time bomb. It like, if it's not addressed, it ends up exploding later on in all other kinds of ways. And I know you've made some big moves lately too. Sorry, making a little segue here, right? With Brave and Company. And obviously now, I mean, this is your path. You've chosen this. This is God's purpose for your life, right? At this time, right? And you've spoken, you've given me little nuggets here and there about, if you don't, if you are wanting to start like a professional business, or you're wanting to start like something official to where you can actually serve others in your area or virtually nationwide or whatever, that pain, not healing from it, can hold you back from that. And I know you've had your own journey with that. Can you kind of maybe unpack that a little bit? And we'll just kind of go wherever we have to go with your experience and, get in the office in the last year, or it was 2 years ago, right? When
No,
did you
it's
get
been
the
in the last
space?
6 months.
Okay, in the last six
So it's
months. Oh
still
my gosh. Yeah.
yeah.
This is
So it's been
amazing.
fresh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I've been doing I've been doing grief work for about 8 years now, went private practice 5 years ago. And like I said, I talked about the therapist and she had me come work at her office. And then we all ended up we started something called Ampersand Site Clinic. It's no longer in existence, but we started Ampersand Site Clinic and it was so exciting. It was great for a couple of years, which was awesome. I learned so much, grew so much, got to be really collaborative with some other therapists. And then, yeah, in the last year, some things came up and all three of us realized that we're all going in totally different directions. And I was going through a lot at this time and was trying to decide, like, I had just gotten married. There was just so
Congratulations.
many.
And shout
Thank
out
you.
Tony, my
He's
boy
awesome.
Tony. I
I
love
like
him.
him.
Sorry. Go
Um,
ahead.
but yeah, and so all these changes, all these things, and there was just some things we were all confronted with, and the change was painful. Like, it was beautiful and it all needed to happen, but when it was happening, all three of us were like, are we really doing this? Are we going separately? Are we, just realized even some of the ways we looked at life were very different. And we're like, it's so valid for each of us to have ways that we run our business, but these aren't in alignment anymore. And I remember just feeling so much pain and struggling so much and saying, I don't want to do this anymore. Maybe I just do part time, or maybe I just don't even do, like, I questioned everything because of just some of the conversations that were had. And because of that, I started to shrink. And I was like, okay, well, until I really decide, I need to, maybe I just work from home and do online, or I just get like a little space and, and I started just shrinking more and more. And then started listening to this podcast. And my husband, if you know my husband, he is like Energizer Bunny. Like, he's so smart. He has so many ideas. He's going to push you in the best way, like, until you are at your full potential and then more.
I
And
had the honor of working with him for like 3 months, and it's one of my most best times in the time where I was laid off was working
yeah,
with Tony. Absolutely love him. Yeah, and
that's
he
awesome.
pumped me up plenty of times. Sorry, another interruption, but every time Tony Tony's mentioned, I think about just how much I love that guy. Sorry, go
Yep.
ahead. So
Oh
he
no,
was like
I love him
Energizer
too.
Bunny. He was pumping you up. All right. He
Yeah.
was helping you. You were shrinking,
Yeah, so
right? Yeah.
I'm thinking, yeah, I'm like, I'm grieving, like, this is a grief, it's a major transition. I thought I was gonna be working with these women forever. We had, all these things planned for the future, and then decided, "Hey, actually this isn't working." And then I started listening to, I don't remember what it was specifically, but it was like in Ecclesiastes, where it's like a time to heal, a time to mourn, a time to dance, a time to move on. And it gave me so much encouragement of like, wait, like, I need to, like, I am leveling up. Like, this isn't a demotion. This isn't me like losing something, or, of course I still had to grieve for sure. And it was such an opportunity for me to start over and do more. But at that time, I really struggled with the pain of, oh, this isn't what I thought it was going to look like. And I am, not losing people. We still work together on clients, still love those ladies, but it's going to look so different now. And my life has to look different. And so I have to make some changes. But in so many ways, like, I just encourage people, if you're listening to this and you're in a transition, lean into it. Aggressively heal and aggressively allow yourself to feel the pain and to work through the grief, and then say, okay, what next? How do I move forward in this? Because I realized, wait, okay, I get to start my own website now. Okay, because we had all shared a domain. I get to get my own space now. I get to, have more of my own clients. I get to go do networking that's different than what I've been
Get to.
doing. Like, I
I
started
get to.
podcasts. I had never even thought of that before. So there's like just so much, like, not my own podcast, but like being on podcasts. I had never even
I was
considered
like, wait a
that.
minute, what? Are you
No,
announcing that? No.
no.
You should
Sorry.
have one though. Sorry, Casey.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Good to know.
Your reels are sorry. Your reels kind of are like podcasts. They're very, very cool how you just get inspired. Like, we're gonna put your socials in. I hope everybody follows you. And anyway, sorry,
Yeah.
another squirrel. I'm known for that.
It's perfect. It's great.
But you were talking about the things
Absolutely.
I get to do. I get to have a website. I get
Yeah.
to have a building. I get to yeah.
Yeah, and at this point, I had forgotten, like I said, like, when I was going through before I went through all my losses, I did this year-long internship. And this internship, I just spent a year really diving into my faith even more. And I really felt God speak into my life that there's two different things that he was going to do, or two different things were going to happen. One was that I was going to have a mentor that I came up under, that I learned from, that I grew with, things like that. And then part two was that at some point I would have a center of my own. Now, I had completely forgotten about this because, yeah, I went through this internship and then I had all of these losses. So when I went through the losses, it was, my brain was not thinking about all the cool things I was going to do. I was in survival mode. And so as this transition is happening, I start to realize, wait, okay, the woman that I just followed for the last 4 years, that was the mentor. Okay, you're telling me that there's gonna be a building now. Okay. And so my husband and he was like, again, I was gonna get, just a small little, room, work a couple days a week still. If my husband, who totally believes in me, was like, let's go buy a building. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? And so we go search and we start, looking, and we go look at this building, and I'll make this part, short, but we go look at this building, and we have, however many months, and we go through the process, and we look at SBA loan. We look at like 5 different types of loans. Half of them are saying we are asking for too much money. Half of them are saying we're not asking for enough money. It's all over the place. All of the things are just falling through. And I'm like, see, in my head, see, I knew that I shouldn't be
Yeah.
doing this. Like, let me just go get a
Right.
tiny office. Let me just call somebody. I need to have an office. And my husband's like, nope, wait, wait, wait. And the Lord was like, just trust me, wait. Every year, God gives me one word for the year, and my word was wait. Well, in the transition, it was the year before was wait. And then the next year was the word wow. And so I'm like, just wow, what do you mean? And God was like, I'm about to show
That's
off.
awesome.
I'm like, okay, cool. So yeah, with this building, all the things, it looks like it's all gonna fall apart and it's not working. Literally, we have 1 week and we're like, how are we gonna pull this out? And randomly, my husband and I are on a walk and we see this sign pop up, and it's on Main Street in Grandview. And I had seen several of these buildings. We had popped our head in and looked at different ones, and all of the offices, besides the one I have now, all of these offices, they're all giant rooms, or they're medical offices, or they just weren't going to fit what I was needing. Well, then, yeah, we talked to the guy and we come look at this one, and it's exactly what I was looking for, hoping for. Even the other building, we were going to build a waiting room. I was worried about safety. I was worried about exposure. All of those things this building had. And so I walk in
Wow.
and there's 5 offices. There is a waiting room already built in. There is a like a desk for a receptionist. There is, which sounds silly, but like I worked in corporate woods before, and I didn't have a kitchen. I didn't have a sink. I didn't have a microwave. I didn't have a fridge, which sounds silly, but like working all day every day, you don't have those things.
And
It makes
and
a
in your
difference.
line of work, let's be very clear with everybody too. In your line of work, you are on from the moment you cross that threshold to get in, and then your odds are you're not leaving at
Yeah.
the time you thought you were going to leave, because
Yeah.
it is so involved. And so yeah, you're there. It needs to
Yeah.
be home or close to it. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. No,
I know what you're
absolutely.
saying. Yeah.
And even, yeah, a bathroom, I had to walk out of 2 different offices. Like, it was like a fourth of a
Scan a
mile walk
badge, get
just
a
to, like,
key, whatever, all that
yes.
mess. Yeah.
Yes. And it was a whole ordeal, whereas I'm like, it's 10 steps to my bathroom now. And yeah, and just like God reminded me, like, I was going to have a center, a healing and trauma center. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. And so all of these things, like, it was because of the disappointment. It was because of the grief. It was the thing I was so scared of happening most, that needed to happen so I could go out on my own. And now we're still in the process. Like, it's been, I think, 6 months now that I've been in this building, and I'm still waiting for God to say exactly what I'm doing. He doesn't always tell you what, just, the next day what to do. But we have a therapist who is going to be renting a room here, which is going to be cool to add to that. We have a massage therapist we think is going to be moving in the next couple of months. I also started like, people who are doing the program that I'm doing, a lot of times they kind of just get thrown in afterwards. Because of my story, it was okay. I'm going to figure out how to do it. So I've created my own curriculum to now teach people who want to do what I want to do. I was like, I don't think I've shared that with you, but I've created my own curriculum. And so now I'm taking students on and giving them a space, because I didn't have the space to just, like, I didn't have money to, rent out a whole office to start a business where I was only getting a couple clients. And so I'm now creating that where I have an office if somebody wants to come do this part time and learn from me, and um, just be able to figure out, business and emotional side and all the pieces. So, like, being able to teach somebody else what I've learned. And so that's been cool. But yeah, my encouragement in this, if I can pull a couple things from these stories, is one, find people who are going to aggressively believe in you way more than you're even going to believe in yourself. Because that therapist believed in me, and then I started, and then my husband believed in me, and then I did this. And it's like, finding people that are, yeah, even crazier than you and even believe more in your passions than you even do. That is such a huge thing in business. Because that was a thing that also surprised me too, is how many people, when I started, there's so many people who were so supportive and kind. And there are people who I thought would be supportive it was so clear that they were so jealous. And I didn't realize it
Mhm.
as jealousy. I just saw it as, oh, you're going to fail. Notice those people that are jealous or are not able to just fully be happy for you. And jealousy, it sounds like mean, but it's like, I used to be the same where I'd look at other people and I'm like, "Ugh, I can't believe they're doing that." And I'm like, no, it's just because I'm mad that I haven't done that yet. And so,
It's a
um,
insecurity for sure. I went through that as well.
yeah. And then the other part is, yeah, aggressively healing is because of it started to show me that my self-worth wasn't as good as I thought it was because it's the second something went wrong, I blamed myself. And I'm like, well, maybe it's because of this, or maybe I really shouldn't help clients, or maybe that was a fun run, but I'm done now and I'll probably never be as good as X, Y, and Z. And I just compared myself to try and find emotional safety. But what I needed was to grieve and to heal and to say, like, no, this reminds me of other disappointments. It reminds me of other people who have let me down. It reminds me of other situations. And it's bringing up voices in my head from the past that I didn't realize were still there. And so those kind of things held me back. And so I aggressively had to heal. So yeah, those are just some of my encouragements with that.
I'm fascinated by how you've said that aggressively heal. I also know this being married to a marriage and family therapist. And, now, Stephanie's directing the counseling center over at MNU and all that stuff. And, working with nurses back in the day, caregivers, people that really care about others and take that care to healing, helping others heal, taking care of yourself. It's amazing how much effort that takes. I've had experiences with that, and just even like with my kids, being a dad to my kids, and like, what kind of dad do I want to be when I get home? And remembering, like, if I have a tough day, like, when I see them, like, I'm like their whole world right now. And so how can I get myself out of that mindset or take a few moments in the car? No, I won't pursue that tangent anymore, but just that idea of caring for yourself and aggressively healing. And when I hear you say aggressively heal, I think being a very intense personality myself, like I've always been like just the Ron Swanson quote, why half-ass two things when you can whole-ass one thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
I would
Oh yeah.
rather just like, I need to heal. This is my whole world, and now I'll get obsessed with it. Or like, I'm starting this new diet thing this week, and so it's like I have to really watch myself with my tension towards aggressive living or
Hmm.
my tendency towards aggressive living. So, but I love that because the other thing too is about these people that have really believed in you. What was the word you used? It was a verb to make belief. Oh my
Encouragement.
gosh. You were saying you said you have to find people that not aggressively believe in you, but
They aggressively
that
believed in me too, but
that
yeah,
really believe in you,
wholeheartedly.
right? That really believe in you. It's like it's a separator because yeah, you will see people that are like, their insecurities come out and all that stuff. We know finding those people isn't easy and it takes a lot of vulnerability as well to put yourself out there to say, "Hey, I need help." I don't know about small business loans. I don't know what, like, for example, being a women's business enterprise, which is another designation, right, for businesses and
Hmm.
just all the things, like, we weren't educated on any of that stuff. So then we have to learn as adults when we have bills to pay and we've got a family to take care of. And in your case, you have clients that, I'm sure you've got, probably a mixture of really, really heavy meetings and, you know, getting calls and things like that and having being, trying to improve your path as well and help others. It's a lot. It's a lot.
But we always say,
Yeah.
like, my husband and I, we say, work hard, play hard, rest hard. And
I
so
like
with the
that rest
aggressive
hard.
healing, sometimes it can feel like, because it's like, wait, healing isn't aggressive. And we aggressively have to choose to slow down and hold space for ourselves and become soft and gentle and look at the things that hurt us and even you were talking about, your kids where it's okay, I have to make sure that I'm walking in a good spot. And the amount of people that walk into my office saying, there's some people who are, oh yeah, I have this wound and I need to heal it. But a lot of people are, well, I think I have this thing, but like not much else. And the method one of the things it does is it pulls everything out of the closet. It pulls everything out of that backpack and it shows everything that's there. And the amount of people that come to me, and even in the business world, actually, especially in the business world, I think so much we can get so focused where it's, well, I'm not really, sitting with people's emotions. So why do I really need to heal? And it's like, okay, but like if you have not processed your relationship to money, if you've not processed, your relationship to success, if you don't realize that deep down you might still be trying to prove something to your dad or your mom, it might not seem like, oh, I don't have anything big to heal, but every single person that sits in my chair always says, oh, there's so much more here than I even realized. And not to, I always feel so bad in some ways because I'm like, wait, did I just ruin their lives? And I'm like, no, but like you cannot change or heal what you don't acknowledge. And so I think so many times people want to try to, they don't think that they fit in this kind of a gap, or they don't need therapy or healing. And, previous generations before, it was so much therapy is like really bad, or you've got to have something really messed up, or something awful, where it's like, no, let's just look at some patterns and how can we help you heal even more. How do we make it so it's even better? And your brain, it's even those loops over and over, those fights that you have with your boss, and those conversations that you're having in your head. Like, how do we close those loops so that there's more space in your brain for your passions, for the way that you live, the way that you grow, the way that you build your business, like, and just the way you build your life. Like, if your brain is full of all these things, you're not going to be able to move successfully. And I've seen it full
Absolutely.
grown adults who, are about to go out on, out to a speaking event, and they walk out and all of a sudden they're, crashing under the weight because they're like, wait, what are these people going to think? And what if my business fail? Like, all of those fears, the bigger your business gets, the bigger the fears get, the harder those things become to manage. And the more you have to shove stuff in the closet because you don't have time anymore because it's so busy. And so, like, if you can take, and not just, not just like with this, but like with anything, if you can take 1 hour a week, if you can take, you would take 1 hour a week for your business, easy, but would you take 1 hour a week to fully invest in yourself and to take care of yourself? And it's, well, I don't have time for that. There will never ever be time. And if you're in the business world, you're hopefully only going to get bigger and better. And so heal when, like, there's no good time for healing, you know what I mean? But it will smack you in the face whenever you're not ready, whenever you think you're doing great, when everything's just chugging along and all of a sudden something smacks you and then you're, wait, where do I go? Like, you're drowning and there's no life vest. Whereas how do we get you, instead of drowning, how do we turn you into a tree that's planted deep and your roots are deep? And so when when the storm comes, it's, oh my gosh, this hurts. This is so bad. This is terrible. No, no, no. You're not a tree that's being, like, you're not drowning. You're a tree that's being thrown in the wind. I know it's a weird analogy, but that's
No, it
the
makes sense.
difference someone made for me when I was going through things where they're like, wait, you're not drowning anymore. You've healed, you've processed things, you have the tools. So get those tools so that you can be rooted and grounded. And then, yeah, when a storm does come, you know what to do.
Wow. I feel like too that's coming back a lot back, that a lot of that comes back to what you said. Gosh, so insightful when you said we live in our head, and grief is a heart wound. And so often, and yeah, I know there's probably studies on how other cultures grieve and all that. And in fact, yeah, I remember Stephanie and I, that's something she's very passionate about too, is how people grieve loss and how other cultures care for each other when there's a loss or there's miscarriage or there's a new baby. Like, even like cultural expectations there, but we're all trying to just think our way through these heart problems. And obviously, it's not really getting us anywhere. And I think that's another, as I think about like addictions and things like that, and like the way people medicate their grief, it's just always this temporary thing that never seems to work. So there's always this pull for more. I think about my own experiences with alcohol and you know just video games, or anything can be a distraction or like an interrupter of like what we're feeling. And I don't think those are bad things. Like, even though I choose not to drink, I don't think people who drink are bad or anything, but I just feel like we're constantly trying to all push our way through this race of life. And what I am encouraged by is that, we have you doing this work. And I know there's people that are helping others process grief. And we know that in mental health, behavioral health, all that, those fields are there's a very high demand. And, as far as like salaries and payment and expectations go, like society is not caught up with that either. And so it can feel like a thankless job sometimes. And, it seems that you have to have a deeper well of purpose and like, this is why I do this. And I sort of went off the rails of what I was originally thinking of asking you. So I'm just going to get right back to what I wanted to ask you. In your experience in the last 3 years or even the last year, what are some moments or what are some themes that you're seeing that people are going through? And I know you can't share about what's going on with your clients, but just generally, can you think of some things that maybe you've been surprised by, or maybe like you think is a new phenomenon that's happening in our society in the last year that you didn't see when you started 8 years ago? I'm always curious to know people on the front lines like yourself, like what type of battles are you seeing people fight?
Hmm. Well, this also, before you asked this question, you said some things, so I want to speak into that, but it does
Yeah,
tie
please.
into
Please
this.
do.
But I think a lot of people think if they were thinking right, that it wouldn't hurt so bad. But like, if we all, I don't know about us overthinkers, like, if thinking was the thing that healed us, I would be so healed. Like, it's like the way that I overthink, I would be the most healed person. But
Big
it is
time.
not, again, it's not a head wound, it's a heart wound. And so it's having to heal your heart and sit with those things. And then, yeah, the coping mechanisms it's such a huge thing. That's one of the biggest things that I sit with. It's the process that I teach. It's a 7-step process. And then we use steps 4 through 7 over and over again. So, but step 2, even in step 2, we talk about coping mechanisms or something we call STIRBs, which is short-term energy relieving behaviors. And so it's short-term, quick. I always say like there's a difference between like coping and grounding, where coping is, okay, I've had a long day. Okay, I'm going to scroll on my phone. I'm going to go grab a glass of wine. I'm going to eat that 4th Oreo. I'm going to, you know,
Fourth Oreo.
12th
Very
Oreo. Let's be
specific.
real. Let's be real. That 12th Oreo.
Second pack. No.
Yeah, exactly. And it's some of those, like, again, like some of those are not necessarily bad, but it's what you do with them. So exercise and food, for example, the therapist that I work with originally, she's a, eating disorder specialist. And so seeing a lot of that, where it's it's, oh, working out, it's great. It's, it's my therapy. Like, how many dudes have you heard them say that? Oh, working out's my therapy, which is, they're so good. Like, it's so important. I mean, same. And it's like great, but like also go see a therapist. And
Right.
so yeah, working out, where it's working out is good. It's beautiful. It's so healthy and important for your body. But if you're doing that instead of, or, I'm just going to do 2 a day for the next, whatever, and it'll help me get through this breakup. Absolutely. And please go talk to your friends and go sit out in the sunshine and go, all the things. And same with food, where it's food you have to eat. Food is so important. It's so good. It's so nourishing for your body. And, okay, are you eating that 12th Oreo every single night to, shove something down or to help you feel better? And so I think it's interesting because as you say that, you ask that question, and my answer probably might surprise you because it's, okay, what's the new thing or the different thing? There's definitely things that have come up, but what I have found, what's interesting, because even in this method, one, it's 7 steps and you use the same steps over and over again, but you use these steps for every single different type of thing. And so I think it might sound backwards, but an encouragement is grief is grief is grief. There's all different kinds of new things that are coming up that we have to deal with. And, there's so much political grief. There's, just family grief. There's, around the holidays, there's so much. And please hear that's not to minimize, but like, I think so many times I hear this all the time. Oh, you probably think I'm so crazy, or this thing is so wild. And I'm like, I've heard that from 5 other people today. It's in a different form, but this is emotional pain and this is hard and it's hurt. know, it's hurting me and this thing created this wound. And it's while they're all so different and so painful, like we all experience so many of the same things. And so some people, it hurts to hear that because they're like, I want to feel like I have an original experience. And in some ways, it's we are all human, all going through different things. Like, we do not compare losses on purpose because we all experience it so differently and at different times. And but we have to be careful not to, yeah, we have to be careful not to compare. And like we all go through things just so differently. And so giving yourself emotional space to, I hear this all the time. Well, this person's going through so much worse. You're always going to find somebody going through something worse. You're always going to find somebody more successful than you. You're always going to, like, we cannot compare. Our brains naturally are pattern seeking and habit forming. That is how our brains stay safe. So, pattern seeking, we're always looking for, like, this thing happened. Okay, what happened in my life that feels familiar? Okay, this person rejected me. That feels like my mom. Okay. Like we have these same patterns and then habit forming. Okay, so I see the pattern and now I'm going to go choose this thing because it makes sense. And so all of us are looking for ways to, I don't know where I was going with this now, but it's like
No,
it's
you're
so
you're on
much
one.
of
You're doing good.
us. Sorry, did you have, or were you going to say
No,
something?
no, you're doing great. So many of us,
So
you
many
were
of
going with our
us.
brains. Yeah.
Yeah, and so our brains are, we're all trying to compare. That's where it was. We're all trying to compare because it feels, this person said this, I'm going to relate to that and I'm going to say it and I'm going to spit it back, but what we're hearing emotional information and we're spitting back logic. And so we want to compare because we want to, one, we don't want to feel our pain. Well, I have this health thing, but they have cancer. So I'm going to not talk about it. I'm not going to bring it up. I'm not going to, and of course it's not appropriate for me to go up to that person with cancer and be like, I know how you feel. Don't do that. Please don't do that. And, it's again, holding that space like, hey, you're going to the hospital a lot. How has that been for you? Like holding space for that because you know what you feel, you want to learn what they're feeling and to see, maybe if it is similar, but to be really careful because we want to, I don't know if I'm making sense. We want
You are
to
making
feel
complete
that
sense.
we want to put ourselves in a box. We want to put our emotions in, okay, either I fit here and it doesn't matter, or okay, I do matter here. Or, it's like, wait, what if you matter and I matter? And we cannot sit and compare because we're all going through things. And there was this analogy one time where it's like, if we all dumped out our crap into a giant pile in the middle of the floor, so many of us would go run and grab our crap back and be like, I'm good with this. Like, I'm gonna take mine. Like, we're good. It's okay. Like, I don't want that. But it's like, we can't compare. We cannot say because somebody has it worse or better that I should not process. It's, I'm going to process my emotional pain so I can be there for this person who's going through something maybe similar or totally different. So, yeah.
Yeah, we absolutely all struggle with binary thinking. Like, if this, then that must treat.
Yeah.
Seriously, like society's seriously struggling right now too with like how multiple things can be true at once because it's not like a truth is relative kind of approach. I'm not suggesting that, but like, can you be in a sucky position in life and I can be in a sucky position in life? Yeah, we both can. And I've learned these maxims over time of like, the hardest thing you've ever been through is the hardest thing you've ever been through. And this idea of like another one too that gets me that I've learned because I've done this work in my life. Like I remember reading the grief recovery method. Another one was a book called It's Okay That You're Not Okay. I think her name is Megan. I can't remember her last name, but she was grieving her husband's death and something that was powerful. I remember she kept his ice cream in the freezer for at least 7 years.
Mm,
And I remember when our dog Rambo died, like I had I had read that book and I just didn't feel like taking his dog food out. Actually, we left his dog food in the sealed container. It wasn't in a bag, but we'd always dump the food in this thing.
mhm.
And I think it was like 4 years later we decided to just take it out. And I remember and we still find his hair in our laundry. Like, he's been gone for, I don't know, 6 years now. And I remember that experience though of like pouring the dog food into the trash and I could smell it. Like it hadn't gone bad and it reminded me of him. And I was just like,
Mhm.
man, that's I was able to actually experience that because I had gotten into a resource. And going back to something I think I might have learned from that book, but or something somebody told me was like when you're sharing what happened, like, hey, my mother passed away unexpectedly last night, terrible situation. And when folks will say, I can't imagine that, the truth is they can imagine it and it is so uncomfortable and it's an awful feeling. And it's very hard to sit in that with somebody. And I had to learn to forgive other people too who didn't know how to show and grieve. And that was another thing I had to figure out was like, man, I was mad at all these folks who I remember one person told me, I know your heart's hurting, but God's heart is hurting so much more,
Mm.
you know? And like
Ew.
I was on one of our losses and I'm like, yeah, I know. And I think back and I go, you know what? That person just in that moment, I think they thought they were doing the best they could. And all of us, if we were Monday morning quarterback in our life, like, would we all
Yep.
be proud?
Yeah.
Probably not. We've all had cringe moments, but I had to realize that. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, and somebody handed you the Band-Aid and said, "You're good now, right? Okay, just here's the thing, it's gonna fix it. My wise wisdom is going to fix your pain." And you made a point too. You made 2 points. One, where pet loss. I'm a pet loss specialist as well,
Wow, I didn't know
which
that.
yeah, a lot of people it's, "Well, I don't wanna, it's just a dog. I shouldn't." But they're deep, deep inside, like, struggling so much where you either understand or you don't. Some people are like, and other people are like, "I am wrecked. Like, this is not okay." But it took you that time to process that, and that's another, it's, I think, a video I saw a couple days ago too, where this guy was like, "It's been, 7 years since my mom died." And when people, it's like, they're like, "Oh, you're grieving." Like, he's like, "Yeah, it's an anniversary death." "Oh, I'm so, so sorry. How many years has it been?" "Oh, it's been 7." Oh, okay." Like, "Oh, you're good now then," right? Like,
My gosh.
it was a
Yeah.
long time ago where you're like, "No, it took us years to throw out that food. It took us time to work through that." And let me be clear, time does not heal all wounds. I think that's
Thank you.
such a common thing.
Time Heals
And
Nothing. It's one of
yeah,
my
time,
favorite albums by Crowbar. Sorry.
yes, absolutely. Yeah,
He
where it's
named
like
the
if you're,
album after that, like,
yep.
because it
Ugh.
doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's so good. Where it's, yeah, if you're driving a car and your tire blows and you leave your car there, if you come back a year later, your car is still there, the tire is still blown, and if anything, it's gotten worse. And so, but it's still, it's an and, which you even talked about holding space for both. I had this big tattoo on my arm and it's an and sign in the middle, and then there's flowers, and then there's weeds. And there is beauty in the flowers and the weeds. A lot of times we feel like it's one or the other. It's, I either need to be healed from this or I need to not be healed from this. And it's like, wait, what if I can have joy in my life and then sometimes walk into the cereal aisle and then start bawling? Like, what if I can, feel both things? What if, your dog had an illness and you had to put your dog down, so there's relief that your dog isn't in pain anymore and you're missing your dog? It's, there's holding space for so many things. And exactly that, that example of, say, I have a health condition, but I don't want to compare to somebody who has cancer. It's, why are we comparing? Why can't I have a hard time with my
Seriously.
health condition and they have a hard time with cancer? And it's not saying, of course, to give credit where cancer is brutal. So please hear that. I'm not saying what I would be going through is the same. But the point is, I can't minimize myself because it's, oh, it's not as bad. It's, no, no, no. This is still here and that's still here. And there's plenty of room for both. There's plenty of room for and I think, yeah, so many times we are just so afraid to sit in those conversations. And I think so many people are so afraid to say the wrong thing that they end up saying the wrong thing. It's, okay, I'm gonna
Right?
say something. I'm gonna go fix this. I'm gonna help them. And it's like, what if I just ask, how has this been for you? Okay, what are you going through? And what feels supportive right now? And how can I love you well? And let's just go to coffee and talk about anything but cancer. Like,
That's
or we can
another
talk about it.
super powerful. I love that you just said that is recommending what we can do together. because that's another thing. And I know we're really getting into this meta stuff because we've been through a lot of grief, and like truly, like this is something that I don't think most folks realize. And I think we're going to have a lot of people listening to this episode because they grief, that word, they know they're going through something, they're going to want to get something out of this. But like recommending what you can do with that friend or that family member, because when you say let me know if I can do anything, man, they're not going to let you know.
No.
Odds are they're not going to let you know. And odds are they don't even know what they need. I've seen me do it. I've seen me have everyone around me saying, let me know what I can do. And as I've developed friendships, I've got deep, deep friendships now. Like, and Jeremiah, Tony, those are two of my guys too, right? I know, like, if we're all sitting around a fire at Rob's house or wherever, and somebody brings something up, these are the types of folks that are saying, "Would would you want to go get coffee tomorrow morning?" Or can I bring you dinner tomorrow? Or, you know, if you know what they're into and the things that give them joy, maybe, be sensitive about that. Maybe it might be sensitive around the loss or whatever, but like making a recommendation sometimes too. And I do think you've got to keep a pulse to see if that's the right thing. But I love how you said that, like, how has this been for you? Would you like to go out to coffee to talk about it more? Because, hey, we know bad news too is pretty much always inconvenient. And sometimes people drop stuff on you in a text because they don't feel like calling and saying it or telling you. And you've got this text that weighs 10 tons in your feed, and you don't even know how to respond to it. And there's just making that recommendation, though. I just thought that was so powerful. It's
Well,
very
and
helpful.
when we ask them, "Oh, tell me if you need anything," you're putting more on them, which if you know
That's
grief
right.
brain, you can't even breathe, function, eat, shower. Like you can't even be a human. And so to form the thoughts, "Oh, I need coffee. Oh, I need time. Oh, I need it's too much." And so saying, giving options, "Hey, I'm going to the grocery store. Do you have a list? Or is there anything you guys are allergic to? And I'll just grab some stuff." And it depends, of course, on your relationship and, paying attention to those things. But like, I'm gonna grab this, or can I watch your kids for a couple hours so you can get a nap? Can I take your kids for the day, or can I come do some laundry? It's giving options too. But just even, yeah, showing up and listening instead of like we have two ears and one mouth for a reason. Like we're supposed to be listening and holding space, but often we're not we're not super great at that. We've not learned how to do that, and we don't put time in our schedules for that either. I think, yeah, especially as a business person, you're running your business 24/7, but again, it's that work hard, play hard, rest hard. And so find those people you can really like, finding people in your life that are going to show up for you, that, want to be there for you, that, and yeah, just check in with people. And I think sometimes we think these conversations have to be this big long thing. Texting a friend, "Hey, I've got 20 minutes today. Would you like to hop on a call?" Absolutely. And they can take it
Yeah.
or leave it, but it's like being aggressively showing up for people too.
I'm a huge fan of you saying aggressively because I get it. And this conversation has been so cool. I'm definitely going to have you on again in the future. So we'll talk about that when it makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, do you want to? I'm having guests this year. Just kind of sign us out with, like a words of wisdom section, or if you could leave anybody with any one takeaway, and also a spot for you to just kind of drop how you can be found and how people can, get resources or whatever. But you just take the floor and you can close us out, Casey.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm in Grandview, Missouri, right on Main Street, which a lot of people think it's that far. It's right off the highway. So I'm 30 minutes from literally anywhere. I also do online, and I can, because of the specific things that I do, I can see people in all 50 states. And I have
Nice.
a couple clients in Canada too, which is cool.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So that's something. If you want to come see me, come talk to me. Let's chat. I do just love to share what I do with people. So if somebody wants to call and say like, "Hey, is this a fit? Let's talk about it." I think just because we had talked about this before we hopped on the podcast, and I still want to, add this is just a reminder for like business people too to like it's okay if you're like for me I tried to be a business person and it didn't work out well because I was trying to fit in a box that I didn't fit in. Like if you're running your business, like yes, I have a business, but like I'm a grief specialist through and through. I'm a healer. I am, it's like who is Casey? I am a healer and I'm someone who holds space and I'm someone who loves well and I have a business. And so when you're trying to encourage people to come to your business, everybody can run a business, which we love. And it's what makes it like, why do people need you? Like I use this analogy of like a cup of water where I felt like I was out in the desert and I had this cup of water and I'm like, come drink it. Please come drink it. And it's like, some people are going to say, well, I want to find my own water. And are you sure that's water? It looks suspicious to me or, whatever, where it's like, no, be proud, be encouraged. Hey, I have water. And if you're thirsty, you can have it. And it's not personal if they don't drink it or if they find their water from somebody else. But it's like, anyways. And so just be encouraged with your business that it's like to be authentically you in that, yeah, just hold space for your friends, like hold space for your business people. If you think people are okay, chances are they're not. And so check in with check in with your strong friends, check in with your friends that you're kind of avoid maybe because, oh, they're going through something again. Okay, hold space for them.
Absolutely. Casey, it has been so cool having you on the show, and I'm looking forward to next time.
Yeah.
Thank you again so much for coming on. And for all of our listeners, we want to hear from you about this new format. We want to hear about how you feel about, the new approach, just getting straight into the shows, anything that we can improve for you. Your voice is the one that matters to us here at KCBC. So, having said that, we'll close up, and until next time, have a great day. Casey, that was so